Visual Studio interview questions and answers. Beginner means advanced. Introduction. Microsoft Visual Studio is an integrated development environment, IDE, developed by Microsoft for building desktop, web, cloud, mobile, and enterprise applications. Visual Studio is widely used for .NET development, C# and VB.NET applications, ASP.NET web applications, Azure development, desktop applications, mobile and game development. Visual Studio provides code editor, debugger, Git integration, testing tools, package management, cloud deployment support. 120. Visual Studio Basics. What is Visual Studio? Visual Studio is an IDE used for software development. Who developed Visual Studio? Microsoft. Powerful debugging, IntelliSense, integrated tools, Azure support, Git integration. What is IDE? Integrated Development Environment. Languages supported by Visual Studio? CSharp, Key VB.NET, Key C++, Key Python, Key JavaScript. What is solution in Visual Studio? Container for one or more projects. What is project in Visual Studio? Collection of source files and configuration files. Solution versus project. Solution can contain multiple projects. What is Solution Explorer? Displays projects and files. What is Toolbox? Contains UI controls and components. What is Properties window? Displays properties of selected object. What is Output window? Displays build and debugging output. What is Error List window? Displays compilation errors and warnings. Auto-completion and code suggestion feature. What is NuGet? Package manager for .NET libraries. What is extension in Visual Studio? Plugin adding functionality. What is build in Visual Studio? Process compiling code and generating output. Compiling source code into executable. What is rebuild? Cleans and rebuilds project. What is clean solution? Removes compiled output files. What is target framework? .NET runtime version used by application. 21 to 40. Development and debugging. What is debugging? Finding and fixing application issues. What is breakpoint? Marker pausing program execution. How to add breakpoint. Click left margin beside code line. What is step over? Executes current line without entering method. What is step into? Enters method during debugging. What is step out? Exits current method. Monitors variable values during debugging. What is immediate window? Executes expressions during debugging. What is call stack? Displays method execution path. What is exception handling? Handling runtime errors. Try catch example in C#. Try. Int x equals 10 divided by 0. Catch exception x. Console.writeLine x message. What is hot reload? Updates running application without restart. What is code refactoring? Improving code structure without changing behavior. Common refactoring operations. Check. Rename. Extract method. Move class. What is code navigation? Quickly moving through source code. Check F12. Control plus T. Control plus click. What is code formatting shortcut? Control plus K, Control plus D. What is comment shortcut? Control plus K, Control plus C. What is uncomment shortcut? Control plus K, Control plus U. What is task list? Displays to-do and task comments. 41 to 70. Git, testing and ASP.NET. What is Git integration in Visual Studio? Built-in source control support. Common Git operations in Visual Studio. Clone, commit, push, pull, merge. What is branch in Git? Separate development line. What is merge conflict? Conflict during branch merge. What is unit testing? Testing individual components. Testing frameworks in Visual Studio? Check. MS Test, check NUnit, XUnit. What is Test Explorer? Window managing test execution. What is mock object? Simulated dependency for testing. Providing dependencies externally. What is ASP.NET? Framework for building web applications. What is ASP.NET Core? Cross-platform modern ASP.NET framework. What is MVC architecture? Model View Controller Design Pattern. What is Razor View? ASP.NET View Engine syntax. What is Web API? RESTful HTTP Service Framework. What is REST API? API using HTTP methods and stateless communication. Common HTTP methods: GET, POST, PUT, DELETE. What is Entity Framework? ORM framework for .NET. What is ORM? Object Relational Mapping. What is Connection String? Database Connection Configuration. What is AppSettings.json? Configuration file in .NET Core. What is LaunchSettings.json? Debugging and launch configuration file. What is Publish in Visual Studio? Deploying application for hosting. What is IIS? Internet Information Services Web Server. What is Docker support in Visual Studio? Integrated Container Development Support. What is Azure Integration? Deployment and Cloud Management Support. What is Live Share? Real-time collaborative coding feature. What is Package Manager Console? Console for NuGet commands. NuGet install package example? Install package Newtonsoft JSON. What is SDK style project? Modern, simplified .NET project structure. What is solution configuration? Build mode configuration, like debug or release. 71 to 100. Advanced Visual Studio concepts. Debug versus release mode. Debug for development. Release, optimized for production. What is profiling? Measuring application performance. What is Performance Profiler? Tool for performance analysis. Unreleased memory usage. What is Diagnostic Tools window? It displays runtime diagnostics. What is Code Analysis? Static analysis for code quality. What is Roslyn? .NET compiler platform. What is Analyzers in Visual Studio? Rules checking code quality. What is code coverage? Percentage of code tested. What is architecture diagram? Visual representation of system design. What is Visual Studio Installer? Tool managing workloads and components. What is workload in Visual Studio? Group of development tools, features. CUC, ASP.NET, Desktop Development, Azure Development, Mobile Development. What is Extension Marketplace? Repository for Visual Studio extensions. What is ReSharper? Productivity extension for .NET developers. What is Source Generator? Compile time code generation feature. What is Nullable Reference Tab? Feature improving null safety. What is Async debugging? Debugging asynchronous code execution. What is Multi-Project Solution? Solution containing multiple related projects. Common Visual Studio interview topics: debugging, ASP.NET, Git integration, NuGet, testing. Common Visual Studio issues: X, slow startup, X, build failures, dependency conflicts, X, IntelliSense problems. Best practices for Visual Studio: use shortcuts, organize solutions, enable code analysis, use source control. How to improve Visual Studio performance: disable unused extensions, increase memory, clean solution, update IDE, reusable code template. What is template project? Pre-configured starter project. What is cross-platform development? Building applications for multiple operating systems. What is MAUI in Visual Studio? .NET Multi-Platform App UI Framework. How to become strong in Visual Studio. Practice debugging, learn shortcuts, understand .NET tooling, use testing tools. Biggest Visual Studio interview concept. Efficient development and debugging workflow. Key Visual Studio interview focus: debugging, project management, testing, and .NET development tools. Final summary. Visual Studio interviews focus on: check, project and solution management, check, debugging and breakpoints, check, Git integration, check, ASP.NET development, check, testing tools, check, NuGet package management, check, Azure integration, check, performance profiling. Key idea: strong developers understand how to use Visual Studio efficiently for development, debugging, testing, deployment, and enterprise application management.